So I'm going to cover chapter 7 for Java. In this chapter, we're focusing on inheritance, so how classes inherit from their parent class, as well as polymorphism. Now let's see how that works. So basically, inheritance. What is inheritance? Inheritance lets one class, the subclass, reuse the code from another class, which is the superclass, or in other words, the parent class. So if animal is the parent, then dog, cat, hippo, lion are its children. So they inherit traits such as methods from the animal class, because the animal class is the parent class, but cannot also have their own unique behaviors. But they can also have their own unique behaviors. So it can override methods, and when it overrides the methods from the parent class, it creates its own behavior from that method that it overrides. So let's see how that works in our code. So in chapter 7, we have here, firstly, this animal class. So basically the animal class is more of the superclass. So it's basically a superclass. So in other words, a parent class. It defines general behavior for all the animals. So eating, roaming, and making a noise. So we declare all our methods for the specific animals over here. Then other animals will inherit these behaviors unless they choose to override these methods. So you can see here I have my animal class. This is my superclass. Then the rest of these classes here inherit from my superclass, which is the animal class. So here I have the different types of animals. So the cat is gonna inherit from the animal class. The dog class will inherit from the animal class, as well as the hippo class and the lion class. So firstly, this cat class over here, like I said, in the animal class, which is the super class, it has these three methods: void, eat, right? Then this method roam, then make noise, and this is what it prints out for each method. Now, because we declared these methods here, and because this is the super class, other classes can inherit methods from this class. How you inherit from that class is we use extend. So create a new class cat, and then use extend animal, meaning that it's gonna inherit attributes from the animal class. While it can do that, it can use the methods from the animal class and can actually also override them. So to override a method simply means to change the behavior of a pre-existing method. For instance, here we have this method declared in animal, which is eat, and it's for all animals. So here, and then basically here we overriding the method by giving it a different behavior, and then also overriding the roam method from the animal class by giving it a different behavior, as well as here. So these behaviors will be specifically for the cat class. Here we do the same thing with the dog. So yeah, we do the same thing with dog. Dog is gonna still inherits all of these here, these methods. Only difference now is it overrides the eat method and gives it a different behavior. Same thing with hippo, lion, and the dog class. So here you can see here it inherits all those methods from the animal class. Difference now is that it's just overriding the eat method and the make noise method. Same with the lion class, which is gonna override all three of the methods from the animal class. Then we have the vet class, which represents the vet that you take like an animal to, basically. In this vet class, what's happening is, so in this vet class, the vet doesn't really care what kind of animal it's treating. So it just knows it's dealing with some kind of animal. So when we have a type and we use the type to call methods for all the objects, we call that polymorphism. So it's the ability to treat different objects, in this case the dog, cat, hippo object, which basically inherit from the animal class, is to treat all those objects from the subclasses as if they are the same type of animal, and let them behave in their own way. Let them behave in their own way when we basically override methods. But that's just basically what polymorphism is. So in vet, we can see here, firstly, I have this give shot method, right? And basically this give shot method has, I'm calling the make noise method within it, but I'm using the animal object. The animal object that is placed in this parenthesis as a parameter. So the value that it receives based off this make noise call is basically for a specific animal. So all we're doing here is we're using A as the animal type to call the make noise. Then it's just gonna make a call for all different types of animals, for cat, dog, hippo, lion. It does that because in my pet owner, I basically pass the dog object that I created here into parentheses here by the give shot method being called. I pass it here as an argument. I pass hippo here when I call give shot, cat, and lion. And when I do that and call the give shot method, what happens is those values get passed to this parameter. And let's say dog gets passed here. That's the type of animal that I'm calling this method for. So make noise will run. And when this runs, what happens is the make noise method for dog runs. In this case, the dog class doesn't have the make noise method overridden, so it's just gonna print this method here. This animal is making noise. That's specifically for dog. Then another example would simply be, like for instance, let's say hippo is passed to the give shot parameter as an argument over here, and when I call make noise, it uses the animal type to call make noise method for all the animals. But in this case, I passed hippo here, so that means we go here and this method runs, because we're able to access the hippo class because we're calling make noise for the specific animal, and then this will print out. So that's basically how polymorphism works within our code and inheritance. So here I created a second method, check animal. It's just gonna call different methods using the same type, which is the animal type, which we declared here. So over here. So here we call roam and call eat, not just for one animal, but for all animals. Reason being is because we created all the animal objects over here, and we're able to pass the animal object reference variables as arguments when we call the check animal method. So here we pass dog, hippo, cat, and lion. So let's use the example of lion. When we call a.roam, when we basically declare check animal and we call this check animal method, right? What happens is for check animal, we pass the lion as an argument over here. So we pass this object as an argument, and it's gonna run the check animal method for the specific object, which it's gonna run roam and eat method for the line. So when you go to line, we can see the roam method prints line is roaming and line roars. Reason why is because within the class we overrode those methods that were declared in our super class. So that's basically how that works. And in pet owner, as I was explaining, you can see I have our pet owner class. So the pet owner class is where we create our different animal objects. We pass them to the vet. How we pass them to the vet is when we pass them here as arguments, when we call those specific methods for the vet object, essentially. Then even though the vet only knows it's getting an animal, each animal behaves according to its own class. Reason being is because each animal has its own subclass that inherit from the main animal class. Then it's dynamic. It's a dynamic method dispatch. So Java figures out which version of the method to run at a time. So yeah, that's basically how that works. So we first in pet owner we declaring all these or creating all these objects, and we basically calling both methods in our vet class. And while we call them, we pass the arguments as objects over here. So it can call those specific methods for each animal, essentially. So yeah, that's how that works. Let's see. So to see it work in real time, this is where I run my program, my main method. Cool. And then it prints. You can see here, this animal is making noise. Let's see. So that's for this first method, that was this first declaration here, this line of code where we called vet.giveShot, called the giveShot method, passed to the dog object as an argument to giveShot. Then basically what runs is the make noise method. This make noise method for the animal type, but the animal type is the dog because we passed an argument to this parameter. So when we go to dog, we can see that make noise is not overridden, so that means we're going to use the one in the main super class, which is this one here, and then it prints this animal's making a noise, and so on. Then for instance, you can see here the fourth one, hippo grunts. Basically that would be this one here, where we use check animal. We call check animal for the hippo. So that's gonna call this roam method, and when we call this method, or the make noise method, actually what happens is make noise is basically of course declared in the animal class, but in the hippo we basically overrode that method and gave it a new behavior for that specific animal, and this gets printed out over here, and it works the same for all the other function calls. So yeah, that's basically how inheritance and polymorphism work. So basically inheritance is a subclass reuse and customized behavior for a superclass. So we're using methods from the superclass. That's what inheritance does. Polymorphism treats your different subclass as the same type and still gets unique behavior. So like I explained here, it's basically just using the animal type object to call the method for all different types of animals. Then overriding is the subclasses, when the subclasses replace inherited methods with their own versions to basically give them their own behavior. So as we can see here, we have these methods declared here, and this method gets overridden when we use that method and give it a different behavior for this specific object. Then it just creates flexibility, so our code becomes easier to expand and maintain. Then we're gonna explain the difference between method overriding and method overloading. So method overloading, the definition is basically defining multiple methods with the same name in the same class but with different parameter lists. So declaring, say you declare 3 methods, for instance over here, they all have the same name, add, but they all have different functionalities per se, because they'll have the different amount of parameters being passed there. They have different data types, or they'll have a different amount of parameters. So as you can see, it's the same name for the method, but it has like 3 parameters here. This one has 2 parameters, so on. So it happens within a single class. Methods differ by number or type of parameters. It returns type. Return type can be different, but it's not enough to overload by return type alone. It is known as compile time polymorphism. Then we have method overriding. This is providing a new implementation of method in a subclass that already exists in the superclass. So declaring the same method but giving it different behavior, like I explained with the animal classes. So it requires inheritance. Method signature must be exactly the same. Return type must be the same. And yeah, it's used for polymorphism. So you see, as the difference here is with method overriding, we're basically declaring the method within the superclass. So void speak is the method. Then in the subclass that inherits from this class, we have the method here again. Only difference is we're overriding it with new behavior. So instead of saying animal speaks, it says dog barks, so it can relate to that actual object, so it can make sense. So yeah, that's basically the difference between method overloading and method overriding. And yeah, that's a summary of chapter 7.